Hey folks, you know who it is, your favorite person's favorite person. Couldn't be happier. Another NAMCA podcast with another Rockstar guest. So wherever you are, clap your hands, stomp your feet. Please welcome Courtney. James, Courtney, how you doing? Round of applause. I'm going to give it to you.
Woo! I'm great. I'm doing great.
The good stuff.
All right. That was a great intro.
Appreciate you so much. You deserved it.
I need you to start doing that. I need you to come to Chicago, and every time I walk into my office in the morning, I'm gonna need you to play that sound clip.
I got you. You know what? I may just put it on audio just in case I can't make it there.
Perfect.
So when you hit a button, boom. It happens.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you. How are you doing today besides a little chilly? I'm sure it's chilly up that way in Chicago right now.
Yeah. You know, the snow's actually starting to melt for us a little bit, but overall I'm good. You know, I just finished up lunch a little while ago with a good colleague of mine. So Friday's my day usually that I get to catch up on things. So grinding it out, which is always good too.
Thank you. Appreciate you for catching up with me and us. That being said, I gave you a bit of a heads up. Now we're going forward full throttle. I want you to take the next however long it takes, all right, to brag on you. Just let us know how amazing you are, what makes you the rock star that you are. You don't have to hold back. Today's the day. Let her rip.
I should have put all my medals on for this. No, I'm joking. But hey, everybody, my name is Courtney James. I use she, her, and her pronouns. So I currently serve as the Director of Student Involvement at DePaul University in Chicago. So I'm really proud of the professional that I've become. I have been in the field just about 15 years now, I think. One of my most recent professional accomplishments, I got elected to the NACA Board of Directors this year. So I'm really proud of that and my opportunity to serve my peers through that. But this past year, I think some of the things I'm really proud of that I accomplished, particularly in the pandemic, DePaul, I think was really I tried to position us as a nationwide leader in virtual programming, and I got to connect with a lot of people for that. But outside of that, I'm just really proud of I think who I am overall as a person and a human too. I have a really great family support system here. I've found things for me that help me in my balance. And, because as I'm sure a lot of folks on the podcast know, student activities can oftentimes be taxing and overwhelming, but I'm also proud of myself for, a little bit of that balance I've been able to find outside of work. Being in the city of Chicago, I get to go to basketball games and Broadway and Chicago shows and go to all these great restaurants around the city. So that's a little bit about me overall, but excited to chat further today as well.
Thank you so very much for doing that. And it's great you mentioned just being a good human. Mentioning that's we need more. Sometimes I feel like there's this battle of good versus evil.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful, wonderful thing to know, folks, I just want to be a good human and live life.
Yeah.
You mentioned, and real quick, and then we'll jump to some other stuff, but you mentioned, industry leader, institutional leader in virtual programming. Mm-hmm. Because you said that, are there a couple things literally off the top of your head where you're like, hey, this would help you? Because what we are finding, even a couple years into this, folks are still struggling in some ways from a virtual engagement standpoint or virtual programming standpoint. What are a couple things you feel off the top of your head that can be helpful for folks who are struggling?
Yeah. Well, the first one that comes to mind is I think that we can learn a lot from our colleagues in academic affairs who are doing synchronous and asynchronous classes, right? So they're doing classes that either happen in real time or that happen at a time that's convenient for our students. So one of my recommendations for people is figure out how to offer programs and connections synchronously and asynchronously. Because I think that we as a profession and as student activities, before the pandemic began, we all believed that the only way that you could create community or develop students is if they were sitting in front of you in a specific room. So I think when we pivoted to a virtual environment, everybody was like, I got to make a Zoom room and try to get people in. But the software we're using for this right now is called StreamYard. And I use this software personally all the time for virtual programs because the great part about it is people can watch this whenever. They can watch it in real time as it's happening, and you can advertise a set time, and they can interact and ask questions and have a conversation in the chat. But they also can do it at a time that's convenient for them, right? If they want to watch your program or participate in your program at 2 a.m., they can do that. So we utilize StreamYard a ton for just different types of programs. We did coffee houses. We had a live pumpkin carving. We had Chef Jill did cooking classes, all of these different types of experiences. So like if you're thinking about what type of entertainment you're doing, like think about how can you offer your content and your experiences synchronously and asynchronously. And then the other thing that I oftentimes think about, like for virtual engagement, is like, sometimes you've got to like or like particularly I think college student engagement right now, like what are the things that you can do to create moments of intense joy for people? Because research shows that, and I learned this through an experience that I was in NACA, but research shows that small moments of intense joy for people are actually better than long events that or that people remember them more than long events full of a lot of positive experiences. So like, can you create some signature small moments of intense joy, even remotely or virtually, that, people look forward to? Like, I don't think I have one here anymore, but last year we had 96.4% of our classes were remote. So all of our students were gone from Chicago. So we created this thing called, and I've got one of them here. We created this thing called the Sticker of the Month Club that everyone would get. And I don't have the envelope around, but everyone would get every single month. They got an envelope that said greetings from student involvement. And it was, cute. We had like all sorts of stuff, but then it had a different DePaul themed sticker in it. And I can't tell you, Stan, how many of my students are like, when are you going to start mailing us stickers again? And
really?
Yeah, but they looked forward to it, like they didn't get snail mail. Like snail mail is kind of falling, we all know what's going on with the post office, but like those small moments of intense joy. I mean, this cost me like 50 cents a student to do, but those small moments of intense joy while they're year remote stuck with them. And they still, even though we're back on campus, are still talking about that. So, I think those are the things that like immediately come to mind is like, how can you do, like, we talk about meeting your students where they are. How can you meet them where they are, even time wise? And then also like, what can you do to create those small moments of joy for people?
Small moments of joy, small moment of intense joy. That was powerful. And actually, I think maybe I heard or someone, the way that you explain even doing your events, synchronously and asynchronously via StreamYard being helpful, because I honestly have not done much of that or haven't been as intentional, but it can absolutely be, it's a great resource to create engaging programming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for mentioning that.
And even just visually, right? Like the podcast that we're doing right now visually looks significantly better than a Zoom room, right? Like there's so much about the senses, and like somebody could be watching this or they could be listening to this. There's so many different ways like that you can engage people in a different way. So, yeah, I think just even like creating those differences in visual cues is really helpful.
Awesome. Now, you said nearly 15 years in higher ed. How were they lucky enough to find you? Or how did you find them and bestow your luck upon them?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So I was really fortunate when after I left grad school, I went to Western Illinois, and then I actually moved to Oklahoma for about 5 years. And while I was there, I honestly, I realized that the thing that was really the most important to me was to have a strong supervisor. Like I needed to be at a place that I believed in the vision and I believed what they were doing and like had appropriate resources. But I was doing a little bit of a search, and to be honest, like some of the places and like when I was talking about who was going to be my supervisor, I couldn't see the relationship working. And Kay Robinson at University of Central Oklahoma was the best supervisor I ever could have had in my first job. And I was like, I need somebody who's going to be as good as her. Like if I'm going to move. So, my undergrad was at Augustana College. And while I was there, I had an advisor named Amy Minaw, who was my Greek life advisor. And she ended up eventually going to DePaul. So a position opened up at DePaul, an assistant director position at the time. And I remember seeing it, and I texted her and I was like, Amy, like her name's Amy Minor, I think I said. I was like, I know DePaul has a history of great professionals. Do you have an internal candidate, or is this truly a search? And I remember her texting me back and said, Courtney, your ears must have been burning because I was just going to tell you to apply for this. So, because Amy was that person, she was the strong supervisor I needed. And I had that like previous experience with her to know that she was a great leader. So I remember like coming and interviewing with her, and like while I was sitting in her office, she's like, because I'm actually initially from the Chicagoland area.
Oh, yeah.
But she's like, what reservations do you have? And growing up, if you're from a suburban area next to a major city, like the city is like a big deal, right? Like you don't go to the city every day. And I remember looking out the window and she's like, what reservations do you have? And I was like, all of this, like Chicago is intimidating to me. But she talked me off the ledge and was like, Courtney, you can do this. And now I just bought a condo last year in the city. So yeah,
here I am.
Right. Yeah. So she left like a couple years in, and then I had the opportunity to be promoted. So here I am. Like I love DePaul. It's a great place to be. And, one of the things I most appreciate about it is Amy told me when there were two things she told me, and hold on, I'll show you a picture of one of them because I made my own personal meme, if you will.
I love it.
But she, if I can get it off, she told me when I started, and look, you didn't even know that this was going to be a show and tell, Stan.
I didn't know.
Right.
Get up a level.
Yeah. She told me there were two things she told me. She said, and this was a couple of the things I was looking for as a young professional. She's like, DePaul is the type of place where like opportunity is being handed to us on a silver platter, but we're also in this unique opportunity that we get to tell people like, hey, can I put this on the platter too? And that has 1000% been the case. Like I get to dream and come up with new ideas and try different things. And DePaul in particular is a campus in a university that thinks a lot about like people on the margins and what we can do for the world around us. So like I walk past a statue every single day that says, what are you doing for justice today? And like, we get to live that, and that doesn't happen everywhere. So that was one reason I stayed. And then the other reason, so this is the picture. So she told me, she's like, I'm driving this bus. And she would do this thing and she'd be like, I'm driving this bus and I only want happy, positive people on the bus. So I made a picture, and that's her driving our bus. So
I love the creativity.
Yeah, I keep this behind my computer. And when I'm having a rough day, I just like look at the bus and I'm like, I'm that happy, positive person that she wanted on her bus, like,
wow.
Yeah. So just a funny little pic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It seems like, I don't know if everyone's as intentional about making sure they, like when they're applying for positions, saying, hey, is this someone that I would really enjoy working with? Is this the kind of, but is that like, what gave you that forethought to go, hey, I want to make sure that the person I'm reporting to, that I'm working with, is going to create a healthy mind state or professional experience for me?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it came about because I had a really bad supervisor before that, and it really tore me down. Like I, prior to Kay, at one point in my career, I had a supervisor that would publicly embarrass me or like publicly tear me down and shame me. Right. And I was like, I can't do that again. Like we spend and our works aren't our lives, but we spend a lot of time at work. Right. So I just knew like I needed, even from like when I applied for my first job that I went to at UCO, like I just knew I needed somebody to do that. And like, there's this, I wish I remembered the exact quote, but there's like this quote about creativity, and like, without creativity, like I couldn't function. Like I really need to figure out what it is, but like, that is me. Like I am constantly dreaming up like the next thing I want to do. And like, if I had a supervisor that would kill that, I I would like I would retreat. I couldn't be in that type of an environment. So,
Yeah.
and I've had supervisors like that that like squelched everything. So I just knew like it's even even more so than like
Okay.
budget dollars and some of the
Yeah.
other things. Like it was more important to me to be part of the right team and be have a good leader that I believed in.
That's awesome. What advice would you give for someone that is there? I guess in addition to that, because of that is amazing advice. But to let's say someone who's new in the ranks of higher ed as they kind of get going, or they're thinking about making that leap, or they're about to. What's some advice you'd give to a younger you or a new
Yeah,
them that's trying to find their way?
yeah. I think, there's a couple pieces of advice. Like one, like find your people, right? Like find your people and find a place that like you can see people becoming your people. Um, but the advice I give to every single grad student is like become a better decision maker. I think that we are doing a lot of things as a field to um, prepare students to some of the ins and outs of our profession, but the biggest skill set that I see lacking right now from candidates is the ability to make decisions and the understanding that they have like the autonomy and agency to move the needle and like to move things forward. So um like I tell my staff, like even before they get here and they become part of my staff, like I don't ever want to talk to you about what color a t-shirt's going to be. I want you to like be able to make some of those like big decisions. I want to talk through with you like if there's other fundamental changes, like yeah, I want to help you think through it. But like we don't start to make those big decisions until we start to decide the color of the t-shirts, right? So like become a better decision maker and become confident. And even if you don't know the answer, start flexing your critical thinking skills now so that you can figure out an answer, right? Because I think that's a skill set that we are missing, and like we're seeing it as a field right now is like we don't have decision makers. We have and I think the other part, we're talking about entry level professionals here, but if there's mid-level managers and supervisors here, like let your people decide, like because we are doing a disservice if we don't let them be the decision makers. So like I have a responsibility, my peers have a responsibility to like train and get this next wave better. And I think it all starts with like a confidence in decision making. And yeah, that's the number one piece of advice I give people.
Whoa, thank you for that. And then you said the critical thinking piece. I think that's a skill set that people could benefit greatly from if they were willing to work on that. So I appreciate that very much. Last couple of things, if you don't mind. So I know you're a part of an association on the board at NACA. What's something that you feel overall that, let's say, associations could do a better job of, or something you think, hey, if they supported us more in this way, it would be amazing?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really interesting question, particularly as we're going through this like great resignation. Um, I think that our associations, like overall, um, need to help us with some of like the entry level trainings, like, and I think particularly about student activities since that's the area I'm in. Like, what does it mean to redline a contract? How do you negotiate performance fees? How do you talk about what backline means? How do you appropriately craft a marketing plan? All of those things. I think like associations, and this is something we talk a lot about at like on the NACA board of directors, and I'll give credit to Josh Branfon at University of Miami. He's our board chair right now, and he talks about like how can NACA be the association that trains your staff for you. And I think like I'm really proud of the work we're doing in NACA, to like make that pivot and make that turn, especially as we're going through this great resignation. Because what I'll borrow a phrase from my colleague Melissa Beer over at Rebel Events as well. Like she talks about how a strong tide raises all ships, and if the association can, if we can have stronger professionals and associations can help that, we're going to see the associations have more membership because these school members see the value of the association. Then we know, like in NACA's ecosystem in particular, our associates will do better because they have school members who know how they should navigate business, right? So like this strong tide will rise all of us together. So that's what I think about a lot. And, I think it's because of my lens as a member of the board, but I think all associations should be looking at that. Like we need to a little bit here, go back to basics so that we can train people to be more prepared to be better professionals and be new professionals, because so many of this past year at DePaul, we've had, I normally have 8 full-time staff members on my staff. And I had 5 people leave this year, Stan. And most of 3 out of the 5 are staying in higher ed, but they found promotions because other positions also opened up, right? Like Rigo Gutierrez is over at University of Michigan. Sarah Rudy went up to Loyola, still here in Chicago. And another one of my staff members, Franco, he's hopefully, fingers crossed things go well for him for an interview this week as well. So, and he'll be staying in higher ed as well. But it's just, now I've got 5 new staff members, all who need training. So if an association can step in, that just provides a whole lot of value.
Powerful. Listen, I feel like you're the Golden State Warriors over there. You're creating. Rigo is a great guy also, familiar with him. So you preparing folks and sending them off, but it would be a lot easier if you had some help in helping develop, strong leaders to continue to support you and the campus. Really, really thank you. Here, last question. Is there anything like, because obviously you work with vendors, folks that work with the in and out agents. Are there things where it's like, hey, absolutely do this? And then there are things like, hey, absolutely don't do this. Right? It's a random question, but are those things existing for those who might come across this and go, hey, yes, okay, I definitely want to do this. Oh yeah, I definitely don't want to do this.
Yeah. Well, I think the definitely do this. Tell me your pricing from the get-go, right? Like tell me your pricing, tell me your honestly, make it all include for me. And this is, I think this might be a little bit of a personal preference. Make it all inclusive, make it as easy on me as possible. And I am more likely to book, right? Like, I'll tell you, like, we're bringing Nia from the Homage Black History Month exhibit with Amped Events. Her and I had a conversation. She told me, this is our price. This is what it includes. And I booked it a week later, right? Like that ease of like, the more, particularly right now, because we're still training our staff members, as turnkey as you can make something, the better for me, right? Nia did it with Homage. Deggy did it for me with mental health fair. We're bringing a couple of mental health fairs next week. Like they very easily for me outlined, here's what it is, here's what it costs. I'll give you a yes or no, right? Yeah. So I think like that is something that is really, really helpful. And like continue to do that, continue to keep like those types of things. The other thing, and this may not all of my colleagues may agree with this part, but I actually believe like keep the email chains coming with ideas. And especially if you can include those prices, because I look at all of them and I might not, admittedly, I might not respond to all of them, but I do keep all of it in mind because I never know like what a topic is going to be or like what hole I'm going to need to fill in. Because I may not bring it now, but I will keep it in my mind for later. Because one thing that we do at DePaul is like I talk about like NACA associate members as our version of shopping local, right? Like shopping local as a trend is like obviously, right? People want to help support small businesses, right. So keep all that coming, and like again, as transparent as you can be with pricing with us, the more transparent, the better. The things to stop. Cold calls. Cold calls kill me, man.
Those still happen? I know there's some folks that swear by them. I just haven't never really been one of those folks. But
right, yeah, those are like I mean, like the if you call me right now and say, "Do you have 5 minutes?" No, no, but and I want to hear your pitch, but like if you're gonna try to get me to do like a cold call and like get me to book a contract, like it's just I am not confident that that is going to work out. So that oh, and the other one I would say, and this might just be a personal preference, like keep it in the email, like the social media messages. That's me, right? Like,
is that kind of like showing up at your front door, like knocking, like, hey, wait a minute, we're cool. You can come, but knocking on my door.
Right. LinkedIn, I'm fine. You can message me on LinkedIn. That's all professional. Like, but like if you're gonna DM me on Instagram, dude, I'm not replying. Yeah. So
fair enough. Listen, for you all watching, stop sliding in DMs trying to get contracts done if you weren't invited. Okay, right. Cat's out the bag.
Right. Yep.
Really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much for spending some time, obviously, with me and us and anyone else who ends up listening or watching. Is there anything that NAMCA can do for you to make your life easier? I know that's, of course, I'm asking right now, but definitely something for you to think about. But is there anything that anyone watching that's in any association right now, obviously us right now, anything we can do to make your life easier?
Yeah. I think just keep having these conversations and like not just like a recording like this, but like keep it going in the comments, right? Like tag people and like that idea sharing. And like Stan, I know you're like super active in like the Facebook communities and everything. And like though all of those conversations help, right? Like I think that engagement and the resource sharing. And I think the other part too is like thinking about like particularly from like an association level, like obviously we want some premium services that go along with your membership benefit, but are there some baseline things that you can offer to help people at a very low level, but also, potentially get people in the door? Like, I know NACA's been looking at that too. Like we had some of these coffee and conversations as an introduction to the association. So, looking to get new and different resources out to people, I think is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much for spending this time. Any final words for anyone listening?
Everybody go out and have a spectacular day, right? I hope if you're watching this today, I have a chance to see you at NACA Live in Kansas City next week. But if not, I'm sure our paths will cross in the future. So I just hope everybody has a great day and weekend.
Awesome. Thank you very much for continuing to be the rockstar. People, I don't disappoint. Thank you very much, Courtney. Great to see you. Thanks. And I love your setup. Microphone's amazing.
You're the
real deal. You already knew that, but I'm telling you, you're the real.
Yeah, this one's my favorite. I used to have one that was just solid, and apparently you can like change the color of this. I can't figure that out, but it's a nice one.
In due time. Thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in, watching, listening. Make sure that you subscribe if you're watching this. If you're listening to this as a podcast, make sure you're sharing this on the different avenues in which you're watching this right now as well. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just be willing to make some progress, because effort on fire beats knowledge on ice. This is Stan Pearson, second. You heard it here first. Until next time, make your next move your best move. Peace.